Welcome to Echo Shade, where history whispers its darkest secrets and forgotten stories.
The year was 1914. Winter winds screamed through Moscow as Europe prepared to drown itself in war. Inside a quiet home, lined with books and the scent of sandalwood, a child came into the world, a child who would one day fight one of history's darkest tyrannies. Her name was Noor Inayat Khan. To her family, she was light. To destiny, she was a spark hidden in calm silence, waiting for its time to burn. Soft warmth. Her father, Inayat Khan, was a Sufi musician and teacher, descended from Indian royalty. His voice carried prayer in every note. Her mother, Aurora Baker, an American woman who had followed love across continents, watched in wonder as snow fell outside. Between them flowed two worlds, East and West, devotion and freedom, and Noor was born where those worlds touch. Gentle emotion, Hazrat held the baby close and whispered, "I'll let her grow as light grows through music, pure, unafraid." Outside, the city trembled beneath headlines of war, but within their home when he began, years passed like a melody. The family moved first to London, then to a small hill above the River Seine near Paris. The house was filled with laughter, incense, and the sound of her father's veena. He taught his children that music was not escape. It was prayer. "Remember," he would say, "the world is full of noise. Your task is to bring harmony." Peaceful pause. Noor listened carefully. Even as a child, she seemed to understand more than words could explain. Nostalgic calm, she grew into a thoughtful girl, eyes wide with wonder, heart open to every color of life. While other children chased games, Noor wrote stories, soft, strange tales about kindness and invisible light. She wanted to heal things. Her imagination was her kingdom. Sudden sadness. Then, one cold day in 1927, her father fell ill and never rose again. Noor was only 13. The world that had sounded like music suddenly went silent. She walked through their garden alone, the winter branches empty, her small hands clutched around the last note of a song she would never hear again. She made a quiet promise beneath that gray sky. She would live by the ideals her father had given her: compassion, courage, truth. She would not raise a sword. She would raise her spirit. Time shift, gentle hope. The years unfolded. Paris in the 1930s was a city of art and sunlight. Noor studied music at the conservatory and psychology at the Sorbonne. She played the harp in quiet salons, wrote stories for French radio, and watched the river flow below the bridges she loved. People said she smiled like spring itself. But in cafes and crowded trains, whispers spread like dark wind. Hitler, Germany, invasion. Europe shattered. Noor would pause mid-walk, eyes searching the sky. Somewhere inside her, the same promise echoed. "If peace is broken, I will do all I can to mend it." Shock, chaos. 1940. Thunder rolled across Europe. German tanks tore through France. Nazi banners spread like black wings over Paris. Noor and her family gathered what little they could, fleeing south through smoke-filled roads. Planes screamed overhead. Villages burned. Villages burned. Each night, she held her younger siblings close, whispering stories to drown the sound of bombs. Periphere, they reached Bordeaux, then boarded a crowded ship bound for England. The sea was rough, the air thick with despair. As the coast of France vanished behind her, Noor pressed her hand against the railing, tears slipping free. "One day, I will come back," she whispered. England greeted them with gray skies and air raid sirens. London was wounded, yet defiant. Noor could have hidden within comfort. She was, after all, a princess. But silence while others bled felt like betrayal. She joined the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, training as a radio operator. Her hands, once delicate on harp strings, now moved over dials and Morse keys. Determined focus. Her instructors saw something rare. Calm under pressure, kindness that never cried. One noted, a gentle, but steel beneath. During sleepless nights, she wrote letters home, saying only, "I am trying to be useful." Mystery builds, then came the knock that would change her life. A man from British intelligence had been watching her progress. Fluent in French, disciplined, invisible. She was perfect for a job that few could survive. He asked quietly, "Would you serve your country in a special way?" Noor met his gaze. Yes. Tension that a special way was the Special Operations Executive, Britain's network of secret agents working behind enemy lines. Their mission, sabotage the Nazi machine from within. Most who entered this world did not return, nor signed without hesitation. Training began in the misty countryside. Gone were classrooms. Now there were weapons, codes, dead drops, and drills through endless rain. She stumbled at first. She disliked violence, refused to fire except when ordered. Yet her focus was unshakable. Others panicked under mock interrogations. Noor stayed silent, eyes steady. Reports described her as a quietly brave, completely loyal, willing to sacrifice self. Her codename became Madeline. Cold air foreshadowing, it would be the last name many ever knew her by. Emotional night, June 1943. The moon hung low over an airfield in southern England. Noor stood beside a small plane, a single radio pack on her back. She handed her final letter to a friend. "If I do not return, remember only that I wanted to help." The engines roared. Wind tore at her scarf. She looked up once more, whispering, "May peace find its way again." The plane vanished into cloud. Heart-pounding silence hours later, it landed in a dark French field. The pilot turned and murmured, "Good luck, Madeline." Noor smiled faintly, then slipped into the night. Every rustle in the grass could be death. Every light in a window could be the enemy. Yet she moved with quiet certainty, guided by instinct and prayer. In Paris, she met her contact in the resistance. They studied her, astonished, a woman alone, calm, fluent, fearless. She spoke softly. "Let's begin." Suspense days blurred into nights of coded transmissions, each one pulsing with danger. She sent coordinates, sabotage plans, warnings. German direction finders prowled the streets, trying to locate her signal. Once, as she tapped out a message, boots thundered on the stairs. A shock, she shut off the radio, covered it with cloth, and began humming a tune. Soldiers burst in. "Oh, what are you doing?" One barked. Noor smiled. "Just playing music." They searched briefly, found nothing, and left. When the door closed, she exhaled slowly, heart hammering. Relieved whisper, that was close. She worked on, moving safe house to safe house, her body exhausted but her spirit luminous. In the rare moments of rest, she scribbled in her notebook, "Fear is only a shadow. Love is the light that burns it away." Even surrounded by war, she believed the soul could not be broken. Dark undertone. She did not yet know that her network was collapsing. German agents had infiltrated it. Friends were being captured one by one. The net around her tightened. Still she transmitted, each click of the key an act of defiance. One rainy evening, she sat by a cracked window, radio humming softly beside her. Paris shimmered beneath the downpour. She watched the reflection of streetlights in the wet glass and smiled faintly. But no matter what happens, she whispered, "I have served peace." Slow fading tension, lightning flickered somewhere beyond the rooftops. The wind rattled the shutters, and in the distance, footsteps. The shadows were drawing closer. Tension Paris no longer whispers, it trembles. The once bright cafes stand silent behind drawn curtains. Every footstep on cobblestones echoes with suspicion. German patrols sweep through the city like a storm, searching for one final spark of resistance. And that spark is Noor Inayat Khan. She moves through narrow streets at dawn, her coat pulled tight against the chill. In her pocket, a small radio transmitter hums like a living heart. Hurry, every signal she sends could mean life or death for dozens hiding in the shadows. Yet her hands never shake. Each click of the transmitter is a heartbeat of defiance. The Gestapo has noticed the phantom signals. They call her Madeline, the invisible one. The city is being strangled by fear, and still she remains. Quiet determination, Noor finds brief refuge in an attic above a shuttered bakery. The smell of stale flour and smoke fills the air. She kneels beside the transmitter, adjusting the code wheel. Static hisses through the night, masking the whispers of her own thoughts. She remembers her father's words, that every act of truth carries its own light. It is that light she follows now, even in darkness, soft sadness. Each day brings another betrayal. Her comrades vanish one by one, arrested, deported, erased. Still, she refuses to leave Paris. I am the last link, she writes in a coded message. If I fall, the chain breaks. In the fading light, she moves from one safe house to another, her shadow merging with the city's scars. Sometimes she catches her reflection in a broken window and barely recognizes herself. A princess, a poet, a spy. A woman fighting a war with nothing but faith and a radio. Rising tension, the Gestapo tightens the circle. Posters appear, reward for the wireless phantom. Neighbors begin to watch each other. The air feels heavier. Still Noor walks calmly, a folder of false papers under her arm. Each forged signature, each coded page, is a thread holding freedom together. One evening, rain lashes the roofs as she carries her transmitter through the narrow back streets. A siren moans in the distance. She stops beneath the flickering street lamp and presses her hand to the iron railing, grounding herself in the cold metal. Whisper? I'm still here, she breathes to no one and everyone. At that moment, she realizes something. The war has changed her. She is no longer running from danger. She is the danger. To the enemy, her voice is more feared than guns, shock, but betrayal moves faster than courage. A contact she trusted turns double agent. Her address is whispered in the wrong ear, her name traded for safety. Noor senses it before it happens. A strange stillness, a bird before a storm. She burns her notes, hides the transmitter, and waits. Her pulse is steady. She knows what this silence means. Mid-October 1943, footsteps on the stairs, a sharp knock, then another. She opens the door. Sudden stillness. The Gestapo officer removes his hat. Behind him, two soldiers stand like shadows. Noor Inayat Khan? He asks. She does not answer. Her gaze stays calm, almost regal. They search the room, tearing through floorboards, curtains, books. The transmitter lies hidden beneath the boards she laid herself. But the code sheets are gone. She burned them hours ago. Tense pause. They bind her hands but not her spirit. As she steps out into the rain, she looks once more at the city she refused to abandon. The Eiffel Tower pierces a bruised sky. Paris watches her go, unaware that one of its bravest daughters is being taken away. In the back of the car, the officer studies her face. She looks unafraid. He cannot understand this calm. Whisper, your network is finished, he says. Noor turns her head toward the window, the city lights blurring into streaks of gold. Her voice is quiet but certain. A light cannot be finished. Melancholy, days blur into interrogation rooms and locked corridors. They demand names. She gives them none. They take her papers. She rebuilds her identity in silence. They isolate her. She folds herself into memory. Music from her childhood, her father's prayers, the scent of jasmine from her mother's garden. These are her weapons now. Other prisoners speak of the girl with eyes like calm water. They say she never bends, never betrays. When gods pass, she smiles, a tiny act of rebellion more powerful than any escape attempt. Flicker of hope. Even behind bars, Noor finds ways to send signals. A tapped rhythm on the wall, a smuggled message in a loaf of bread. Each small defiance tells the resistance she is alive. She becomes a legend among them, the princess who would not bow. Outside, the allies are preparing to strike back. Her messages sent before her capture still guide them. Their work is already echoing beyond those stone walls. Every coded line she once sent is now a thread in the liberation to come. Quiet resolve as autumn turns to winter, she is transferred from one cell to another. Paris fades behind her. The air smells of rust and smoke. She hums softly to herself an old Sufi melody her father loved. It fills the corridor, gentle yet unbreakable. Even the guards pause to listen. Soft awe. The fire that began in her heart has not gone out. It spreads quietly now, through whispered stories, through the courage of those who remember her name. Somewhere beyond the prison gates, France is beginning to rise again. Noor cannot see it, but but she feels it like the pulse of a distant drum. She closes her eyes and thinks of peace. The word she fought for, the word she lived for. A single candle in the storm. Fade to silence. Silence, winter folds around Europe like a gray shroud. Trains crawl across the frozen land carrying soldiers, refugees, and those the world has forgotten. In one corner of a guarded carriage sits Noor Inayat Khan. Her wrists are bound, her eyes calm. Outside the window, snow drifts over ruined fields. Inside her heart, a single word glows: freedom. The guards avoid her gaze. They do not know what to make of her stillness. She neither begs nor complains. She watches the world blur past, as if memorizing every color she may never see again. Quiet strength. She has been taken from France to Germany, from cells of stone to corridors of echoing iron. Every door slams like thunder, but she walks through each one as though it were only air. Her captors think isolation will break her. They do not understand that solitude is something she was born into, the child of silence and prayer. Soft memory. She recalls the scent of sandalwood in her father's study, the notes of the veena humming through distant mornings in India. She remembers the words he once spoke. When you cannot move mountains, sing to them. And so she does, sometimes in whispers, sometimes only in thought. Tension. Weeks pass. Interrogations begin again, but they lead nowhere. Her answers are wrapped in kindness and smoke. She admits nothing, betrays no one. Her captors exchange confused glances. One of them mutters, she behaves as though she were already free. At night, she hears footsteps of other prisoners. It cannot see them, but she taps softly on the wall, 3 beats, then 2, a pattern meaning hope. From the darkness comes an answering rhythm. Someone else is still alive. Sadness letters never reach her, yet she imagines them. Her mother's prayers, her brother's quiet grief. She writes replies in her mind, sealing them with invisible courage. She tells them she is safe, that light survives even here. In the courtyard, the wind bites through her thin coat. She closes her eyes and lets the snow land on her face. Each flake feels like a message from the world outside. We remember you. Whispered all, the guards begin to notice that their prisoner carries a strange peace. She never shouts, never curses, but her presence unsettles them. One night, a young sentry asks why she risks so much for people she does not know. Noor looks at him gently. Because, she says, the moment we stop caring for strangers, we stop being human. He says nothing, but later, when he walks his rounds, he hums the tune she had been singing earlier. Quiet defiance. In spring, she has moved again to a smaller cell deeper underground. The air smells of damp iron. There are no windows. Time dissolves. But even in darkness, she builds worlds in her mind. She imagines walking along the Seine at dawn, the city waking under pink skies. She imagines children laughing in gardens that war forgot. These visions keep her breathing, steady, unbroken. The other women whisper stories about the Indian princess who defies the Reich. The tale travels from cell to cell, from camp to camp. Her name becomes a promise. Noor. Light. Soft pride, somewhere far away, the Allies are advancing. Radio waves pulse across Europe again. Noor cannot hear them, but she feels their vibration in her bones. She knows her work lives on, her codes guiding the hands of those still fighting. She closes her eyes and smiles. "I'll let it reach them," she murmurs. "I'll let the signal find its way." Tension building, months slip by. Each day begins the same. Footsteps, orders, silence. Yet within that routine, she finds fragments of grace. The warmth of morning tea, a single sunbeam cutting through a crack in the ceiling. She treats each as a miracle. Sometimes she speaks to the light directly. "You and I," she says, "Inu the same. They can hide us, but they can't kill us." Hope. One evening, an older prisoner sees her through the bars and says softly, "You remind me of spring." Noor laughs, a sound so rare that others stop to listen. "Spring comes for everyone," she answers, "even for those who don't believe in it anymore." Melancholy, the months turn heavy again. News filters through the guards. Bombings, defeats, rumors of liberation. Noor feels it, the empire cracking, the long night thinning. She knows she may not see the dawn, but she smiles anyway. The world is waking, and that was all she ever wanted. Her courage becomes a mirror. Other captives sit straighter when they hear her name. They say, if she can endure, so can we. Her light travels through walls, through fear, through the endless dark. Soft prayer, she begins to meditate each morning, breathing slowly, whispering the ancient word for peace. The sound settles over the prison like a calm mist. Even the birds outside seem to pause. In these moments, Noor is not a prisoner. She is the daughter of two worlds, East and West, faith and freedom, standing between them like a bridge of light. Final calm. When the time comes to move her again, she walks without hesitation. Her steps echo through the hallway. Someone behind her murmurs a courage. She doesn't turn. She simply nods. Inside her, the same flame burns, silent, unwavering, eternal. Fade. They will say later that no one ever saw her afraid. That in her last moments, her final word was a Liberté. Whether or not the witnesses remember it clearly does not matter. The truth is larger than memory. She lived and died for that word. Soft glow. After the war, when peace finally returns, the name Noor Inayat Khan is spoken again. In London, in Paris, in Delhi. Statues will be raised, medals awarded. But those who truly knew her understand something deeper. She was never fighting against people, only against darkness itself. Reverent silence in the years to come. Children will walk past her statue in Gordon Square, where her bronze eyes still watch the world with quiet mercy. They will read her name and feel something stir. Courage, perhaps, or faith in kindness. And somewhere, her spirit will smile. Because light never disappears, it only changes hands. The war ends, but silence lingers. Europe wakes like a wounded giant, smoke curling over its shattered cities. In the ruins, names begin to rise. Names whispered by survivors. Names carried by wind and memory. Among them, one name glows brighter than most, Noor Inayat Khan. Melancholy? Her story drifts through corridors of governments and refugee camps, through crowded trains carrying soldiers home. Some speak of her as a legend, others as a ghost. Yet every version carries the same truth. She never broke, never betrayed, never gave up. In Paris, the resistance remembers the gentle voice on the radio that guided them when hope was ash. In London, officers gather around dusty files marked ISO, discovering reports signed by a woman they once thought too fragile for war. In India, a family kneels before her photograph, the scent of incense rising like a prayer. Quiet reverence. Her mother receives the telegram months after the fighting stops. The words are brief, formal, heavy, but she already knew. A mother always knows. She places the paper beside a small altar, its ink fading under candlelight. She does not cry. She simply whispers, "You return to the light, my Noor." Soft-o, across oceans, her name becomes a symbol of two worlds intertwined. The East that taught peace, and the West that demanded courage. Papers call her the Princess Spy, but those who understand her spirit know she was something rarer. A warrior of compassion. Pause at the Palace of St. James. Her file reaches the desk of a king. The commendations are clear, the testimonies unshakable. Noor Inayat Khan is awarded the George Cross, one of Britain's highest honor. In France, the government adds her name to the roll of heroes and grants her the Croix de Guerre. But even medals feel too small. The real tribute is whispered in markets and homes, in the soft voices of those who survived because of her signals, her silence, her sacrifice. Emotion swelling in 1949. Her brother Vilayat stands before a crowd in London. He speaks of her life not as a tale of sorrow, but as a song. She taught us, he says, that the strength of love is greater than the power of fear. The audience stands in silence. Not applause, but reverence. Tender memory, time moves on. The ruins are rebuilt, the children born after the war play in streets where once soldiers marched. Yet something invisible remains. A pulse, a vibration, a light that refuses to fade. Noor's story becomes a thread woven into the world's healing. In schools, teachers mention her when they speak of courage. In Paris, at the site of her last mission, someone plants a small garden of white lilies. They bloom every year, even in the hardest winters. Soft pride, her story crosses continents. In India, where her father once sang songs of divine unity, her name becomes part of a new generation's search for peace. In London, her bronze statue stands near the university, where she once walked as a shy young girl. Tourists pause there, unaware of the full story, yet something in her expression stops them. A calm gaze, almost human, almost eternal. Reflection, people often wonder where her strength came from. Perhaps from her lineage, the blood of Sufi mystics and kings. Perhaps from her training, the discipline of service and silence. Or perhaps it came from something simpler, the belief that truth is worth dying for. Even now, her story carries that belief into every heart it touches. She has become more than a person. She is a symbol of what humanity can be when courage wears the face of kindness. Gentle transition. Years pass into decades. The world changes. Technology replaces radio codes with satellites and screens. Yet the essence of what Noor fought for remains painfully relevant. Tyranny still wears new faces. Freedom still needs defenders. Her voice, though lost to time, still seems to whisper through static and memory. Soft, hopeful tone in a classroom somewhere in Paris. A young girl writes an essay about Noor Inayat Khan. She has dark eyes and dreams too big for her small apartment. As she writes, she imagines the princess in her cell, calm and unafraid, sending messages through walls of fear. That image stays with her. One day, that girl will grow up to fight for human rights, her inspiration traced back to a name she once read in a book. Satellites orbit where once radio waves trembled through air. Yet even in this digital age, her frequency survives, in the unseen courage of those who fight for truth. Every whistleblower, every peacemaker, every journalist who risks everything to tell a story, they all, unknowingly, walk in her footsteps. Soft pride. A sculptor in the 21st century studies her photograph. A slender woman with dark, watchful eyes. He shapes clay with reverence, wanting not just to capture her likeness, but her stillness. When the statue is unveiled, people fall silent. Bronze catches sunlight, and for a heartbeat, it looks alive. The breeze moves through the square, and someone murmurs, "Welcome home, Noor." Melancholy. Her brother, now old, visits the statue one last time. He places his hand on the cold metal and closes his eyes. "You are everywhere," he says. The wind stirs the leaves. In that rustle, he almost hears her answer. Soft continuity books follow. Biographies, documentaries, poems. Yet none can fully capture the quiet radiance of the woman who faced terror with grace. Historians call her a heroine. Mystics call her an enlightened soul. Perhaps she was both. Perhaps that is why her memory refuses to fade. Hope. In classrooms, children now learn her story alongside those of kings and generals. Teachers emphasize not the espionage, but the empathy, how she never hated. Even when surrounded by cruelty, the students listen, wide-eyed. One boy raises his hand and asks, would she have fought again if she had known the end? The teacher smiles gently. Yes, she says, because she didn't fight to win. She fought to remind the world how to love. Gentle crescendo, every November, candles line the edge of Gordon Square. People gather around her statue, voices low, eyes bright. They read her last known words aloud, a single breath of liberty carried through decades. The candles shimmer, and for a moment the air feels full of her presence. Not a ghost, but a guide. Soft reflection from east to west, her message continues. Courage without hatred, faith without fear. She taught that strength does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers, quietly refusing to surrender. And in that whisper lies the secret of endurance. Final calm as night falls. The lights of the city reflect on the bronze figure. Rain begins to fall softly, tracing silver lines down her face. People lift their umbrellas, but one girl stands uncovered, letting the rain touch her skin. She closes her eyes and feels something ancient and familiar. A pulse that says, be brave, speak truth, carry the light. The girl smiles, turns, and walks into the crowd. The world moves on, unaware that another flame has just been lit. The decades have rolled like distant thunder, soft and relentless. The world Noor once knew has changed beyond recognition. Empires have fallen, new powers have risen, and the lines on maps have shifted again and again. Yet amid all that motion, her story still stands unbent, like a single candle burning in an endless storm. Gentle reflection. In a quiet London park, her statue stands beneath the trees. The air smells of rain and earth, and children chase pigeons through the square. They do not know her name, but sometimes they stop and look up, drawn to something in her stillness. Their parents pause too, reading the inscription. Liberty is the light that never dies. And perhaps, for a brief moment, they understand that the statue is not just stone and metal. It is a heartbeat, a reminder, a promise. Soft history, years after her death, her life was pieced together from fragments, coded messages, witness statements, a few photographs. Historians debated her decisions, military men studied her courage, spiritual seekers studied her peace. But those who loved her family, her friends, remembered something simpler: the warmth of her laughter, the gentleness of her voice, the unshakable calm that made others brave just by standing near her. Quiet revelation. In time, France awarded her the Croix de Guerre. Britain gave her the George Cross. India claimed her as a daughter of honor. But Noor would not have cared for medals. Her victory was not in recognition, but in the quiet act of choosing light over darkness, again and again, even when no one was watching. Soft breath. A filmmaker once said that every war has its ghosts, some who haunt and some who guide. Noor became one of the guides. Whenever people faced impossible odds, her story resurfaced, reminding them that silence can be stronger than bullets, and compassion braver than hatred. Shifting tone, hope. In the 21st century, her words return, broadcast through documentaries, podcasts, songs. A young woman in Lahore hears her story and writes, "She made me believe that I can fight the world without losing my heart." A boy in Paris paints her portrait and hangs it in his classroom. A teacher in Istanbul uses her story to explain courage without violence. Noor's life becomes a bridge once more, connecting people who might never have spoken to each other, uniting them through admiration rather than ideology. Flow of time. The old villa in Schursnes, where she once lived, is now part museum, part sanctuary. Visitors remove their shoes before entering, as though stepping into sacred ground. Inside, the air hums with silence, not emptiness, but reverence. On the wall hangs her final transmission, its faint letters preserved like scripture. "The night is dark, but the dawn will come." It was not just a message to London, it was a message to humanity. Rising warmth outside, the world continues. Cars, laughter, neon lights, screens that glow with endless stories. Yet in every generation there are those who pause and remember her. Artists paint her face. Writers breathe her name into pages. Soldiers whisper her courage before missions. She lives not in the past, but in the pulse of those who refuse to surrender their humanity. Softer still, her mother's candle, once lit in grief, became a tradition. Every year, people across the world light a single flame in her honor, not as a ritual of mourning, but as a vow to live with purpose. In India, the flame glows before portraits of her and her father. In France, it burns beside her memorial. In London, it flickers near the bronze statue, one small light among many, unbending even in rain. Whispering tones, sometimes at dusk when the park is empty. It is said you can feel a faint warmth near the statue's base, as if the stone itself remembers the heartbeat of the woman it portrays. Perhaps it's imagination, or perhaps something deeper. After all, legends are only truths that refuse to die. Slow reflection. Her story no longer belongs to one country. She is not just Indian, British, or French. She belongs to anyone who has ever faced fear and chosen kindness. Her spirit is the quiet defiance in the eyes of a nurse walking into a war zone, the calm resolve of a journalist holding the line, the prayer whispered by a mother as she sends her child into a changing world. Crescendo of meaning, history tends to glorify power, kings, generals, conquerors, but sometimes it is a single soul, invisible, unarmed, unafraid, who defines the true shape of courage. Noor Inayat Khan was one of those souls. She did not conquer nations, she conquered fear. She did not build empires, she built bridges. She did not die for glory, she died for peace. Deep pause, and in that peace she became eternal. Calm finality now when the sun sets over London, the last light glints on her bronze. Birds settle in the branches above, and the city hums around her, unaware, perhaps, of how much it owes to one silent girl who once carried a radio, a dream, and an unbreakable faith in the goodness of humankind. Gentle closing tone, her voice, long gone from the airwaves, still lingers in poems, in prayers, in quiet hearts that listen. It says softly, "Do not be afraid to love, even in darkness." And perhaps that is the truest message she ever sent. Final echo, the wind moves through the park, brushing past her statue. The candlelight flickers, then steadies. Somewhere far beyond time and sound, the frequency continues, clear, unwavering, eternal.